Hey, 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 good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Mornings with Mayesh. Oh, in June, guys, can you believe it's July? It's July. In June, we introduced our third Mayesh Design Star of 2023, Pilar Zuniga of Gorgeous and Green, and I'm very excited to chat with her today. She is a sustainable and eco-friendly florist, an advocate and speaker since 2008. She was named a 2023 Top 50 Wedding Florist in North America by Florist Review and is a host for the Instagram page Florist of Color. Today, we are excited about what it takes to become a California Green Certified business, along with how being a sustainable florist has evolved for Pilar over the last 15 years. And we're going to talk about large scale and wearable design mechanics and so much more. So, just a friendly reminder, if you guys have any questions, go ahead and pop those into the comments and we'll get to those as time permits. Also wanted to let you know, because I get asked this almost every time we go live, if you can't stay for the whole thing or if you missed this, there's always the replays that are available. It's available immediately, the video replay on Facebook and YouTube. Then we will upload a replay to Instagram Live, because while we're live on Instagram Live, we're not on Instagram Live. Does that make sense? And then we also will have a podcast available. So the replay on Instagram and the podcast takes me a couple of days, and we always put all of this up on our blog. So super easy to find. Make sure you check that out. Also, before we get started and I bring on Pilar, I wanted to make sure that you guys are aware that we are searching for our 2024 Mayesh Design Stars. So this is always like a really fun time for my team. So just wanted to make sure that you are aware of that. And I wanted to share the link with you. Just like this year, we are gonna, I feel like once you focus on sustainability, you can't go backwards, right? So, we're still looking for sustainable design mechanics that are worked in. And we're definitely committed to maintaining the momentum and highlighting these different tips, tricks, design mechanics that florists have to share with you. But this time we're going to have different categories for you to pick from for what kind of designs you want to do. So definitely, if you want to apply or if you've been thinking about applying, seize the day, click that link, find out more information. And I'm looking forward to reviewing those applications. And we've gotten some really great ones in already so far. So that's really exciting. Also, guys, we have a Barbie core design challenge happening right now, which is really exciting. Hopefully you saw that posted on our different socials. And this is just, we want to have fun, right? I keep on saying that. I've been saying it, I feel like, for the last year and a half or so. We just want to have fun with you guys. So, the new Barbie movie is coming out in, gosh, like, is it 10 more days, I think? And so we just thought it would be fun to go pink this month, right? So, create some flowers that are inspired by Barbie, maybe your favorite moments or quotes or whatever. Post it to your Instagram feed. Don't post to your stories. Make sure you tag us. Use the hashtag Mayesh Design Challenge. We'll be reviewing the entries. You have, I think, until the end of the month, July 28th, to enter. And the winner is going to receive some free flowers and Mayesh swag. So just a lot of fun. I posted a link so you can get the information and all the details. And then also, guys, I have 4 down and 6 more to go. And yes, I am talking about our Mayesh Design Store tour with the floral coach, Amy Balsters. Next month, we're going to be stopping at Raleigh, Charlotte, and Charleston, and it is not too late to grab your seat. So I am going to go ahead and post that link in the comments for you as well. And I hope we will see you at one of our workshops this year. All right, so I'm going to bring on Pilar, and we're going to get started. Hey, Pilar.
Hi there.
How are you?
I'm great.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the show. So excited to have you on. And, before we jump into the questions, I would just love for you to introduce yourself and share a bit about your flower story.
Great. Yes. So well, first off, I just wanted to promote the people into actually applying to be a Mayesh Design Star. I think it's a lot of fun, and it pushes you a little bit. So I get your applications in. I think it's a great challenge, and um, it was a whirlwind, but it's been really a lot of fun, and I really appreciate the opportunity. So I wanted to
Awesome.
put that little
Yes.
blurb in there.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
love it.
So yeah, so I've been a floral designer now for, let's see, well, for a long time. I would say since childhood. I didn't really know that I was um, until relatively, in my adult life. But I kind of always designed with flowers. And when I started my business in 2008, it was all about being sustainable. So I've sort of always had that uh, look, that lens, and that's actually why I started the business in 2008, was because I felt like at that time people weren't really talking about it. Now, fast forward to 2023 and things have changed quite a bit. So I don't know if I would have started Gorgeous and Green now, but definitely back then it was like, a really, I saw a lot of opportunity to start dialogue and discussion. And so I started Gorgeous and Green, and really, the idea was always like half of it being about floristry and beauty, and the other half about being green or being sustainable. So that's been um, my challenge for the past 15 years, and it has definitely changed over time. And I've gotten a lot of feedback from, whether it's from customers or from clients doing weddings and events, or from other florists. And it's changed and molded the business as it is today. So I feel like over that time, it's definitely maybe some of the wishes I had for it, were harder to grasp, and others were easier. So it's definitely been 15 years of work.
Right, right. And can you tell us about the actual business? Because you do retail too, and I think wedding and events. I think you do a little bit of everything. So what kind of business do you have?
Yes. So initially, when I started the business, it was all wedding and event work. And I actually did planning as well, which was very lofty.
Right.
Um, and also party favors. I mean, yeah. So
You
I'm
did it
telling you,
all.
I was like thinking way too wide. And then after a couple years, and that was while I had a full-time job, by the way, for the first 2 years. Um, After a few years, I decided to uh, basically let go of the full time job and open up a retail store. So I had retail stores. I had two for like 6 or 7 years. And they were more than just floral shops. They were also like part flower shop, part boutique, and part event space and place where I worked on weddings. So I was still doing too much. And then I narrowed it down once again, and brought it most of it online, and I did deliveries and weddings and events, both larger and smaller orders, so people could pick up a small order from me um, at my studio. And then I did like gift baskets. So eventually I had to close those retail shops. It was a lot of work. And then it's slowly gotten narrower over time. So actually now I'm in the midst of another reduction, where I'm just going to be doing my subscriptions and my wedding and event work. And well, maybe it's not narrower because I'm also doing education as a big piece of it too.
That's
So,
great.
we're always kind of changing it up, but I'm trying to make it like a little more streamlined, just because I've had, like I said, lofty goals of trying to influence a lot of different arenas. And I think what I found is I'm good at education. I'm good at event work, and every florist still loves to have, to do the one arrangement for their subscription clients once a month, because
Right.
it's we need that, we crave that. That's our opportunity for like uniqueness and a little bit of continued relationship.
Very good. Very good. So, I think you touched on this a little bit, but can you talk a little bit more about your philosophy towards sustainability within our industry? And then we'll kind of get into maybe how that's changed, like kind of how you mentioned earlier too. But let's first, like, what is your philosophy today?
My philosophy today is really about simplification. So, initially when I started, I got very upset. I mean, to be honest, it's upsetting that we have so many issues with our environment, right? It's not a feel good thing to be talking about like global warming and plastic pollution and finding plastic in our blood. Those are all things like news stories that are going to make us not feel that great.
Right.
So initially, I initially kind of felt like I had to make a change, and had some anger behind it. I think because I've been doing it so long, what I realized is like once you kind of release some of that anger and um, uh, allow it, redirect it, and really try to open your eyes a little bit more to like, how can I speak to most people? Because if you speak to people with anger, a lot of people shut down, right?
Right.
So if you are kind of like, hey, how can I speak to you in a way that you will hear me? And also to myself, like yes, I try to be as sustainable as possible, and I try to simplify my designs and my practices at my studio, but I am not a perfect individual. Like I'm wearing clothes and I live a life. I produce a lot of waste and
Right.
so I think it's also benefits me to be like, okay, how do we simplify? How do we just make it something that's easy to do on a daily basis rather than feel like it's so far away? So that's really been my recent mantra, is just like, how do we take it down a notch? I've got all of these different materials that I use. Is there one material that I can learn to do without? Um, the whole idea of like, how do I source as much as I can from my area, but
Right.
not necessarily saying I have to source everything from my area, because that puts a lot of pressure on the individual or the florist. And it honestly, like I've tried that and it's really it feels like artistically binding, but it's very stressful. So there are times when I do an event or something and everything is local and I'm just like, oh, that's awesome.
Right.
But there's times when I need to support it with other things that may not be, or like I try to just make the best decision in that when I'm given the opportunity. So that's my more recent mantra. I think before I was a little bit more gung ho on like really forcing this idea of being as sustainable as possible, and maybe a little bit more of that, like, like oatmeal. I don't know. We have this idea of like the hippie with like
Right.
the granola and like wearing like, recycled Birkenstocks for the next 50 years. So, and maybe I was a little bit more that way. I've kind of like, I don't actually live that way, so let's like reframe it.
Right. Yeah. No, that's great. And thanks for sharing that and just kind of being vulnerable and kind of talking about your anger, because I feel like a lot of people can relate to that in many different kind of public issue areas. And so I like that you shared that, and thank you. And anyone else that's watching or listening, or maybe even during the replay, just let us know, like, or did you feel the same, and kind of how did you deal with that? I think that's great.
Yeah.
Um, so you talked about today, like how you feel today, and where kind of do you hope to see the industry within the next 5 years or so?
Well, I do feel like the last 5 years have been there's been a lot of movement. So, which is really, as somebody who's been doing this for a while, with this kind of looking at everything through these green glasses, I would say, it's been really nice to see the kind of it becomes the normalization of like looking for local grown, or not, avoiding floral foam, looking for other alternatives. So, in the next 5 years, I mean, what I think would be great. Now, this is asking a lot, I think, of florists, but I'd love to see um, a little bit more community, because I think there is something to be said, and some of this you find through like Facebook groups and stuff, where people are sharing more. And I think that's a huge thing. Like I do think that we have there's all of the things that we need are out there. It's just that an individual owns them. And I don't know that person, but they might be willing to like let me use them, maybe rent them to me. So I think just this idea of like a little bit, I would love to see more of that. I found one platform that was doing that, and they didn't have I think they were doing it for different wedding things like arbors and different things that you would reuse over and over. But it would be great to see a little bit more of that kind of sharing, realizing that sharing is being sustainable. Kind of like this idea of like the tool lending library. I'd love to see more of that happening. And I know we get that through rental houses. But even those are, there's fewer rental houses that I've seen than what there were before. So I don't know. I just feel like we don't need to buy quite as much new things. We could source them from other individuals and other businesses.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool idea. So, a lending library for kind of physical floral tools, supplies, hard goods, that type of thing that can be
Yeah.
reused.
Yeah, I think it would be fabulous, especially because people are doing like really like having things made that are quite expensive. And then it's like, well, I would like to use it, but maybe I use it once, so it would make
Right.
sense for me to rent it from you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great idea. So, I read that your business is California Green certified. Can you share about what what does that mean and how did you do that?
Yeah. So initially, when I opened my business, even when it was in my home, I did a green certification. So I went through, at that time, it was through my county. So I was in Alameda County and here in California. And I just submitted like my information. They had a website, and I believe at that time it was a lot less sophisticated than it is now. But yeah, you just enter your information, somebody gets back to you. I don't at they for I believe for California green certification, business certification, there are grants and given by the state and maybe local governments, so people don't have to pay. So that's a major thing. It's just about creating the time and putting in the energy. So you submit, you have somebody come, they come and check out your space. They ask you to do all these things, like check your light bulbs. If you're renting a space and you don't, find out about the utilities. Just all these different things. How much energy is your fridge putting out? How could you? And then they come in and they basically like tell you things that you can do to be more sustainable. So they check it out. Even I, in my space, so I have a shipping container studio now. That's, like the shipping containers are used, shipping containers. It's all, there's like just a little bit of light. It's mostly window light. Um, I don't have any. I have a cool bot, so I do have like a fridge area, but I don't have like AC or heating or It's pretty simple. But they were like, "Hey, what could we do?" And I was like, "Well, I would like to make sure that the fridge stays a little bit cooler when I open the door constantly." And they're like, well, if you buy these slats that go over, they're like these plastic slats. You see them sometimes at the flower market that just go over the fridge door. They're like,
Right.
we have a grant program where we reimburse you.
Oh,
So
that's great.
for free. You basically just have to do the work to get the thing and then show us the receipt and we'll pay you back. So it will benefit you, I think, in the long run, because there might be opportunities for you to improve your space. And then who is that helping? It's helping me, because then that's going to reduce my energy costs and obviously save energy. So yeah, I would take a look and see what your state or local government has as far as a green certification. I know that there's a lot of programs, and it's just a really great opportunity. Like the water company will come out and talk to you about, reducing water, and they'll bring you the little fittings, and like you get like all this swag to like make sure your toilet isn't leaking, like, or like a shower head. So they'll give you free light bulbs. There's just all these different opportunities to, yeah, you put in some work, but it can benefit you in the long run.
Very cool. Good to know. Thanks for
Yeah.
sharing that.
Yeah.
So, you have been a sustainable florist for what, over 15 years? And, obviously, we've talked about kind of today and the future, but can you talk a little bit about, I know you talked about like kind of that anger piece of it, but like how you function and how you work, like how has that evolved in terms of your sustainable practices within your business?
So, so as far as sustainability is concerned, I basically looked at everything that I was doing in my business. And for example, deliveries. Initially, when I started doing deliveries, I was doing very few, but I was like, oh, this could be something that grows. And how can I make sure that, like, okay, the flowers I'm getting at that time, mostly, I think, all local grown, California grown flowers that I was selling at my shop. I was using like recycled glass containers or metal containers or ceramic, which I still use now. And then I was like, okay, I'm making all these really sustainable decisions, but there's a vehicle involved that's transporting them to someone's house, and it's emitting CO2 as it doesn't. So it's a gas vehicle. So how can I, basically stop that? So I looked into it and I found a local bike courier. They were a cooperative at that time, and I partnered with them, and we sat down and we talked about, the functions of it, how it would work for them, what they needed to get paid, and what I felt I could charge, and how could we work together to make it work. And so, interestingly enough, because I started that fairly early on, within the first year of starting my retail shop, my designs. Because I was doing all vase designs, so I think only using like curly willow um, for like structure. I don't think I was even using chicken wire at that time. Um, I was worried about things like being on the bike and like coming apart.
Yeah,
So,
that sounds like super stressful.
but I did not give up. So I basically just figured out how to make everything more structurally sound. So that during that time, people were doing more modular arrangements anyway. So I was like, well, I'll just like use a lot of greenery to kind of help support and give more branches to everything. And then, like then I can have more flowy or whatever or height. And then I would just tie things with twine and then stick them back in the vase, or use a vase that had a very narrow waist or neck. So I was basically arranging with the idea that it was going to go on a bike. So if you look at my arrangements over time, especially during the time when I was doing a lot of those deliveries, they are bike flowers. Like they can be delivered on bike. I just look at them and I think about that. Yeah, I couldn't, like, people started to get really flowy and airy, and I was like, oh, I can't do that very much. I can do a little bit, but like, what if they're going fast? They
Right.
hit like a downhill and they're going through, and the wind and the flowers are blowing. So, but you kind of see how it definitely affected my style. definitely affected my style. And we were doing, I mean, we were putting out a lot of flowers through bike delivery. And I did that, shoot, I think I partnered with them for 12 years. And then finally they ended up not, dissolving their business. So that is part of the reason why I've kind of had to step back and say, oh, I don't think I can do deliveries anymore. How big of a range did you? Okay, sorry, I just
Yeah.
saw a question in over here in the comments about somebody's asking how big of a range did I cover with the bike delivery, and that's a good question. So they covered. So at the time, my business was located in Berkeley, in West Berkeley, and they covered not just Berkeley, but they covered the majority of downtown Oakland, um, and as well as Albany, some parts of El Cerrito. So they went pretty far. So they covered like 3 or 4 different cities. The biggest thing that they didn't, occasionally they would go to San Francisco, but that was kind of for a very, very special thing, that we would need to charge more, just because then they would have to like get on BART with the flowers and then get off BART, they'll get off the subway system and then go bike, that's kind of a lot. So they did cover a large span, and we had kind of levels. The pricing changed based on how far they would go, and sometimes it would take them like an hour, maybe an hour and a half to get someplace. So that was also in the back of my mind, like, oh, what's the weather like? What time should this go out? Anyway, it did initially cause, some stressful situations, but we just, like with everything, you kind of figure out what you're going to do, what procedures you're going to have to make it work. And I made it work for 12 years. And I would love to get a count on how many deliveries we put out that way, but it was a lot.
That's so amazing. I had no idea that anyone would have delivered flowers on a bike. Never
Yeah.
even heard of that.
Yeah.
Or thought of it.
Yeah, there's one other florist, gosh, what's her name, up in Seattle, who I don't know if she still does it, but for a time she was doing bike delivery. Now that's different because Seattle's a little bit of a smaller city in comparison. The Bay Area is so large. So our bike couriers, man, I mean, they were fit.
Oh, I bet. I can only imagine.
They're like eating burritos and like drinking coffee and like just putting as much in their body as they could.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Anything else that you can think of that's kind of evolved over the last,
Yeah,
decade?
over time, well, definitely my wedding and event work has changed. So, it's gotten better. I feel like my creativity has evolved, and my skill set. And we've had the introduction of some new things. So, we have the ocean pouch, and we have the agri-wool brick. And I think there's even more, alternatives to plastic floral foam right now. So there have been the introduction of some new items, um, that have allowed me to do more mainstream designs. And then, also a lot more like basically, as floral designers, we're this cross between like, well, we wear a lot of different hats, but I feel like one of our main hats is like an engineering hat, where we're
Yes.
we're trying to figure out how to make it work, how to make a structure that is beautiful and offers us lines and all of the flowing or whatever it is that we want, but actually will hold the flowers. And then get this, they actually have to stay alive while we're for the event or whatever. So that is like always the challenge. So I think over the years, it's just like figuring out like, does this work? Will this container work to hold water? Can I use it easily, transport it to a new location, set it up, and it will stay and look good in 100 degrees? Like,
Right.
maybe, maybe not, so That's asking a lot of flowers, just even in water. But so it's just that over the last 15 years is like just like with the bike deliveries, my designs are always with this idea of I can't use floral foam. I don't use tubes. I don't use plastic tubes. I think I have a couple in my studio that are left over from getting flowers, but I think
Right.
I don't use tubes. So it's really this idea of like, how do um, or I can use those little compostable tubes now. How can I create something and make it last and look beautiful and have a happy client and I'm happy. So yeah, things have changed over time. I think part of it is that I feel a little bit this happens with everyone, but as you become a seasoned floral designer, you take more risks and you have your problem solving skills get more acute, right? You're just a little bit better at like, oh, that's not going to work,
Right.
and I need to figure something else out. So I think that's a main thing. It's just like over time, I have always thought of sustainability, staying simple, not using plastics. I think initially I was a little afraid to push the envelope, and as I've gotten more seasoned, I push it now, and I try to figure out other ways. And I think that translates to like the videos that we did, showing some of the methods that I use that I feel good about, that then I can create kind of those mainstream looks.
Love it, love it. Oh, and speaking of videos, let's hop into those then.
Yeah.
Yeah, in your first video, I thought it was very interesting. You talk about knowing what flowers do once they're out of water, and you hung flowers upside down. So, can you maybe share a little bit more about that? And for anyone that maybe has missed Pilar's first video, I'm gonna pop in that link for you.
Yeah, that so when I've the majority of the, like, arbors that I've done, or, like, big installs like that for events, I don't use, water because that has proven to be very difficult. I don't have I haven't I would love to invest in a and there's places at least here in the Bay Area where you can. There's the Vessel Rental Company and a few other places that are making these arches that have places to put like little buckets, or they already come with little buckets, and then you have some water available up around the arch. It is still it's, the higher you get, if you have water, and then you just a little bit scarier because if somebody bumps it, but it probably feels good to be able to have some flowers and water. But I actually have just, generally not done that. There's been a few times when I've, like, maybe I popped in a couple of precious flowers with some of those reused, tubes, or I use the compostable tubes just as more of a security for my own self. Like, oh, they'll do well, because I've done them in the arbor without water before, but adding a little water will just make me feel better because it is
Right.
100 degrees out. Um, but yeah, I just mostly, think about what flowers can I use that don't need water, and then you know, hanging them upside down is like a huge thing because you realize there are flowers that they look pretty good without water for even like a couple days. The only sign that they're not doing that great is that they wilt a little bit at the tip. That's like
Right.
that we know. I mean, not everybody knows, but floral designs for sure know this. So like there's just a few flowers that do that, but if you hang them upside down and gravity is pulling them, no one will know. You don't see it. And that is why we dry flowers hanging upside down, because as they dry, there's just some flowers that dry really well, and as they dry, they're just gonna look like they were in a vase, you know? So just that idea of like, oh, wow, this is like turning it upside down really turns it upside down. Like you have all these different opportunities. Um, and so the larkspur in that video, you know, like it's hanging. I had it hanging for a whole day, and the next day it still looked, I could tell a little bit the petals were starting to dry out, but it still looked great. So I was like, yes, okay, you know, this is exactly what I know is going to happen for a wedding. Like it's just going to look amazing. The tulips and a lot of bulb flowers, we all know, like we go to buy them and they're often out of water.
Right.
So, and they can be out of water for quite a long time. Um, it's just, you know, the gravity issue. So having them already hanging, you know, it's like the natural support of the earth power, you know, saying, come to me, and then they still look good. You know, I've found like I've kept peonies in my fridge for a month. Um, and then, you know, I would say the first week they still look pretty good. They start to get a little dried out and then you just have to put them back in water. But you know, there's some flowers, those bulb flowers, they just, so there's some secrets. You just have to listen and pay attention to the flowers and they'll tell you their secrets.
Yeah, and I that just reminds me, we worked with Sue McCleary, and she had a reliable products for large scale installation guide that we like worked with her and just kind of put it out for everyone. So I'm gonna put that link in there for everyone to check out because installations, yeah, like you said, sometimes water is just not possible, and also, yeah, someone can knock it over, and that whole fun times.
Yeah.
So check out this guide, guys, and it's a really great one. So
Yeah, and I would recommend if people are, especially if you're first starting out and you haven't had as much experience with flowers, like just buy a bunch of different, like a couple different bunches. Like when you go to market, just do some like your own little scientific experiments, you
right,
know, buy a bunch of something random that you've never used before, but you're like, oh, that would be a beautiful blue or a beautiful pink that I would love to use. See how it works. See what it let, you know, keep a couple in a vase, keep a couple in, you know, in tubes, keep a couple hanging upside down and see what happens to them.
yeah, yeah, very good, love it. So this month, Pilar, you have two videos all about wearables. The first one is out, and I think the second one we're gonna go live next week with, I
Okay.
believe. And this month's video was all about boutonnieres, and so I feel like you kind of have two type of materials that you really rely on for like the design mechanic. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so one of the things, trying to go simple again and looking at materials, uh, I realized that floral tape, there's a lot of floral tape that gets used. And initially, when I first started, the one thing that changed over time is I used to use a lot of floral tape. It was sort of like a blind spot. I didn't really think about it. I thought about all these other things, but I didn't really think about florals. And I would wrap stuff all over the place that I didn't need to wrap. And part of that is that I wasn't seasoned, so I was a little more fearful and wanting to make sure that things didn't break or that you know, that they just felt structurally sound. So over time, I've really pulled back from the floral tape and just realizing that there's a lot of flowers and materials out there that don't need a whole lot of structure. They're actually pretty strong on their own and they will hold up. Um, and then I also looked at wire. I was using a lot of wire. And of course, we have the gorgeous green, you know, wire that's sold, but that green, you know, paint is plastic generally. So the green paint on the wire, I was like, man, it would be great if I could just, you know, simplify. So I started working with other wires. I started going to the hardware store and getting what I call naked wires. And, you know, there's a lot of different options out there. And I bet you could find some really cool, weird stuff. I bet you could find like oxidized wire if you wanted to get like really moody or, but copper wire is a favorite because it has that nice warm pinky tone that I feel like it kind of goes and I like to see it. So
Right.
I incorporate it in the designs. But there's also like aluminum, there's steel wire. Like I said, you could probably find a bunch of different, you could probably, I think they even have like metals now that are kind of, they do something to the outside where it's like a chemical change and it gets like rainbowy. So I'm sure you could find some really cool wires out there. But I started to use those wires for boutonnieres and for hair pieces and corsages. So again, just trying to simplify. Now, I still have floral tape, but just realizing that I could also use something else for the support while I'm wiring, and to make sure I don't cut into flowers, I started using this organic moss that I found. And it's just like a big bag. You get it at the plant store. And I just like smush it up or I like get it wet and I use it to wrap around like say a stem is really thin and maybe not very woody. So in order to wrap wire around it, I cover that stem with some moss and then I wrap the wire on it. And that just kind of supports the stem of the flower. And I think it actually keeps it hydrated if it's moist. So yeah, it's just kind of a new method that I've found that kind of, again, simplifies, reduces some of that usage of plastic.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
So in your videos and during our live right now, you've talked a little bit about using local flowers. Do you have any advice for florists in working with their Mayesh reps and getting kind of that locally grown and American grown flowers?
Yes, for sure. So when I started as a floral designer, I think I was hesitant to ask. Well, I did. I went around and I would ask, who was, if there were growers growing at my marketplace, who was growing their own stuff and who wasn't. So I could kind of figure that out. And then, but at like a larger wholesaler, there's so much abundance of stuff. And I was just like overwhelmed. And I would get, over time, I'd cultivate a relationship with one of the reps. And then maybe I'd feel comfortable asking them, hey, where is that grown, or is that local grown, is that seasonal right now? But I think I just was a little fearful and I felt like other people weren't asking as much, so I felt a little like there was a little barricade. But now I feel like a lot of people are asking. I'm asking all the time and I don't feel bad about it. And the reps know. And I mean, of course they want, that their job is to help me. So, and so I'm going to ask them for help. So there might be, like, I went into Mayesh one time and there was like maybe two or three different type of viburnum. Um, and I was asking about pricing, but which, if there was any that were local, and they knew exactly where each of those came from and like the reasoning for the different pricing. So, like it just, I don't know. I just had to get over that whole thing and just be like that. They know
Right.
exactly where these flowers come from. And if I'm asking and I'm buying local and then more people are doing it, then they're going to bring more local product in. So, it's kind of it's circular. So don't be afraid to ask and say, oh, hey, like luckily we have amazing, California is so lucky, but
Right.
we
California is like a totally different world, right? Like there's people who, don't have that like almost all year long.
yeah,
Like for example, when I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, and
yeah,
so, in the summertime we'd have like zinnias and maybe some dahlias and, a few other things, but it's not like It's not like what it is in California.
Yeah.
But given that, we do bring in a lot of different flowers from all different American, grown
Yes, for sure.
farms. So, yeah, your reps know that information. So I think they're a great resource, and I'm glad that you wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, if you're on the East Coast, also the East, think of how big California is. So on the East Coast, even if it's a couple states away, it's pretty local, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, and then American grown and California grown, hey,
Yeah.
and, I would always be like, I don't wanna right now, I don't wanna buy from New Zealand, I'm trying to bring it back, so, or wherever it is, but, it's good to just ask those questions, and the more you support the local grown movement or the American grown movement, the more those flowers are gonna be available and the cooler they get. I feel like they get cooler and cooler every year, so.
Very good. Very good. Someone wanted to know what was the name of your shop, of your
Yeah,
company.
Gorgeous and Green. So Gorgeous and Green, it's always been so this was 2008. So, yes, it was the beginning of the two-word name, like, everybody was like, olive and leaf and,
Right.
Gorgeous and Green. I initially just was thinking like Chanel, and you got the two C's, and I was like, I'm gonna have two G's back to back. That's gonna
Yeah.
be my logo.
I love it. It's
Yeah.
great. So I put for everyone that's listening or watching, I put the links in the comments to connect with Pilar on Instagram, and also you can get a link to her Gorgeous and Green website and check those out. And of course, they'll be up on our show notes on the blog in a couple days as well if you need that. But it's just Instagram, and it's Gorgeous and Green, just all spelled out, just the way it sounds.
Mhm.
Very easy. Pilar, I know you were talking about like you have a passion for education, and obviously you have a passion for sustainability. Do you have anything new coming up that you can share with us?
Well, I'm going to be so I've been doing workshops for a long, long time for the community. A lot of everything from like bachelorette parties to bridal showers to birthdays to just group workshops of random people who want to learn. And I've done individual classes, but I'm actually, because I've been doing this for a while, and I've had this idea of now for a couple of years, but I want to actually educate other floral designers and beginning florists. So I'm offering some classes, actually starting this fall and into the spring, where I basically download everything I've learned about sustainable floristry. So a lot of what you see in the videos, just kind of all my tips and tricks. I have been doing this for 15 years. I don't know for how much longer I'm going to do it. And I kind of just see that I just want to get that information out there so that people can continue, can learn from all that time that I spent and also continue to make it beautiful and better. So, yeah, so that's the newest thing, is offering kind of those classes. And I also have like this cool space, which you'll see you in the video. You see part of that space, but I have this huge studio space that has a lot of space to take awesome photos and just hold a big group of people. So it'll be really nice to be able to use that and get crafty.
Awesome. That's so exciting. Congratulations. And guys, it's just another reason to go follow Pilar on her Instagram so that you can kind of stay up to date with all of that and stay connected.
Mhm.
That's really, really exciting. Good luck with that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, that's a wrap. Not unless you have anything else you wanted to talk about, Pilar.
I could there's always lots of things to talk
Always lots, right?
but yeah, no, I really appreciate it. I actually was listening to you talking about the whole Barbie design challenge, and I was like, oh, for some reason, I don't know why I saw it, but I didn't really like own it until you talked about it. And I was like, oh yeah, I want to do that. I want to design with pink.
Yes, I love it. Yeah. I know. I when I first kind of talked about it, like, outside of my little group in the company, they're like, "Barbie?" And I was like, "Guys, this is gonna be, like, such a big thing." Like, it's you go and I have 2 little girls, so I don't know if it's just in my sphere of my bubble, you know? Um, Not that they play with Barbies, but, it's part of, like it's everywhere they shop, like, all the jewelry, like, people that they like. They have a Barbie collection, and there's Barbie merchandise everywhere, the Barbie logo everywhere, and I was like, let's have some fun with flowers and Barbie,
Yes,
right?"
yes, totally. Like,
Yeah.
kind of like funky, Barbie has changed over the years, and it's definitely like, it's got a cult following, so I think we we need to, like, yeah, celebrate. I'm looking forward to the film. I think it'll be, well, I'm pretty sure it's gonna be unique and surprising, but yeah, I just was like, everybody's had an experience, whether you hate Barbie or you love Barbie, I think we all are so familiar. It's such a part of our culture, so
Yeah, indeed it is. So it's gonna be fun, Like, again, just having some fun. And we've gotten some really, like, fun, like, cool entries so far too. So it's, people we just, like, launched it this week, I believe. And so, we've already seen some really cool things. So just looking forward to seeing even more creativity and just having fun. I just want to
yeah,
have fun
it's
with you
all about
guys.
fun. It's all about fun. And who doesn't, I mean, and pink. Yeah.
Yes. Pink's my favorite color, guys. Like, I have, like, pink. You guys don't get to see, like you get to see, like, my shelves, which, they haven't changed in forever. It's like I just put stuff there and that's it. But, like, I have, like, a pink peony wall in front of me that's,
Oh,
like, really
wow.
pretty, with the big sticker things on the wall.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
love pink. I have a
Yeah.
pink mouse pad and all that fun stuff.
Well, it sounds like you should be doing a piece too.
I probably should, but I'm not creative like that, so I'm gonna launch the contest and watch everyone else's stuff come in, so
I hear that, I hear that.
awesome. Well, Pilar, thank you so much for spending time with me today. It was so great getting to know you and sharing your story with everyone. And again, your videos are amazing. And, we just appreciate your support of, kind of what we're doing with our Mage Design Star this year. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, and I hope everyone that hasn't watched your videos or even the rest of our videos this year, because it's, we've had 6, 7 out already. Check them out. They're all amazing. Everyone's great. Pillars are, again, just focusing on different things and sharing her story a little bit more. You can actually see the video of it instead of us just talking. So it's really great. And I just wanted to thank you guys for coming and sharing your time with us. It's a wrap on today's show. And I'll be back probably in a couple of weeks with some exciting Mayesh news for you guys, and probably soon with our next Mayesh Design Star. So stay tuned, guys, and I will see you all soon. Take care. Bye bye.